Well, welcome team. Welcome to Thursday recap and tips. As you know, my name is Darren. What are we recapping and what are we tipping? We are recapping our workshop from earlier in the month, taking the sell out of selling with rapport skills. So today we're going to focus on three things. We're going to focus on those first impressions. How do we make great first impressions and why are they important? Secondly, body language. How do we mirror and match and enhance rapport through body language? And thirdly, what is third position? Why is it important as communicators and as leaders we put ourselves in third position? So let me share that screen and we'll get straight into it. Make sure you're taking lots of notes as you go through to maximize that implementation as well. As I said, focusing on those three elements: first impressions, body language, and how do we make sure we're in third position so that we can be aware of how we're going with the implementation of some of these soft skills to build rapport. So as we know, rapport is in the very early stages of our meet and greet, whether it's on the telephone or whether it's face-to-face. It drops the barriers, doesn't it? We know that people like themselves. People like people like themselves. They like people that are similar to them. And people will buy when they know, like, and trust you. So it's got to be early in the conversation that we build rapport. Now, it used to be years ago to build massive rapport, but now it's just build enough rapport so that the potential customer, potential client tells you the truth. Why is that important? Because we know that emotions are 100% of decision-making. So if emotions are 100% of decision-making, we need to communicate our products and services in a red to green or a logical to an emotional way. But if we haven't asked the questions, if the potential customer hasn't given us some information about what feelings they want to move towards by using your product or service, achieving outcomes aligned to your product and service, and what feelings they want to move away from that they're currently experiencing, if they don't tell you that through your discovery questions, then we can't do a red to green conversation and talk about your products and services in a red to green manner. So it's all a bit of a system, isn't it? We need to build rapport and mutual commonality so that the barriers drop, the potential customer feels comfortable with you, therefore they're answering your questions and telling you the truth, happy to share some emotions. Sometimes emotions they want to move towards, sometimes emotions they want to move away from. And then that allows you to explain your products and services and do your price presentation logically to emotionally or red to green, which increases conversion. So today we're focusing on that first step of building that connection, dropping the barriers and building that rapport. And the rapport is experiencing the world through the same portal as the person you're communicating with. It's essentially speaking the same language. Now, we've done some work previously verbally about how we can speak to build rapport. Today, we're going to do it a little bit more physically. And the outcome will be it's going to open up a whole new world of possibilities, not just from your success as a business owner or a sales professional or a communicator, but of course, also as a communicator in our own lives outside of work. So allows us to create some things that have previously been unobtainable. So let's hit us up with the first of the three things I'm going to cover in our recap and tips today, which is first impressions. So as we know, it takes 2 to 5 seconds to make a first impression, and those impressions are lasting. Can they change over time? Sure. If you make a poor first impression, it can change over time as you regularly service that person or whatever the case might be. But from a decision-making perspective, those first impressions count 2 to 5 seconds. So the question I want to ask you, and unfortunately, this part of it might be a little bit politically incorrect, but it's important, it's factual, so I need to tell it to you. And the politically incorrect part is that political correctness tells us that it's not the way that we look at it, it's important, it's what's inside that counts. And listen, I totally agree. For people and who they are and the connection we can make to people, it's what's inside that counts, absolutely. However, the political incorrect part is that from a first impressions perspective, 2 to 5 seconds to make a first impression, we often don't get to use those other senses. So we have this 5 senses, of course, to make first impressions. And of course, it's the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of hearing, and the sense of touch. So what I want you to think about is, if you have potential customers or current clients as well come to your facility, your business, to meet with you, or that's where you service them and provide your service, then I want you to think about what is the first 2 to 5 seconds that occurs from that person getting off public transport or getting out of the car or walking in from the footpath. What do they experience in the first 2 to 5 seconds? Or if you're a business, like we know Chris's business, where he and his team go out to the customer at their homes and their businesses, what is the first 2 to 5 seconds that your potential customer experiences to build a first impression? And most of the time, if you've got customers or clients and potential customers and clients coming into your business, like you do, Michael, then they might walk in from the street or the car park. They might see through the front door and the front window. It might be glass. They can see into the facility. They can see your staff. They might be able to see your receptionist at the front desk. In 2 to 5 seconds, what other senses do they use? In most businesses, in that first 2 to 5 seconds, and I'm not saying the first 2 to 5 seconds of the conversation, because first impressions are often made. It's the first 2 to 5 seconds of experiences your business or your service. Now, in most instances, when potential customers come to your business, they can't smell you, hopefully. They probably can't hear you. They certainly haven't tasted you, and they haven't touched you. So there's 4 of the 5 senses that are out the window that we can't utilize to make first impressions. So the reality is, first impressions are often made by the way our facilities and our environment and us personally look. So I'm not suggesting it's about good looking or not good looking. It's not about that, but it's about how professional we are. Let's talk about us as individuals, how professional we are. Are we giving off the right first impressions by the way that we look, that we dress, that our uniform is? Do we have our name tag on? From us personally, away from that, from the facility, what does the signage look like on the window? I see lots and lots of businesses still that have their COVID safety signs, which of course need to stick to the legislation, of course, but they haven't been laminated. They're all scrunched up. They've been ripped and they're still on the window. That creates a first impression. So I know in my businesses, my rule is always, if I'm going to have some signage up, it's got to be printed and it's got to be laminated and it's got to look professional. That way, if you do happen to put it on the window, it's not going to get torn and ripped up. Many businesses have signage that's out of date. It might be a marketing campaign that was for 2 months ago and it's finished, but the signage is still there. It might be they've had signage on the window, they've taken the sign off, but the blue tack marks still remain. Given that the way things look and the way we look is the first 2 to 5 seconds, that makes a big impact. So I want you to think about your first 2 to 5 seconds from your customer or potential customer's perspective coming into your facility. If you're like Chris and his team, where they go out to the client, to their homes and their businesses, well, if it's a business, the decision maker might see Chris and his team turn up in their car. They might see them get out of their car. They might see them walk to the office before they open the door or ring the door or whatever the case might be. If it's going to their home, going to a customer's home, the customer's probably looking out the window waiting for you. They can see you pull up. They can see how sharp your car looks. They can see how you hold yourself, how you dress, how confidently you walk, how you interact with other people. Does a neighbor walk past and you don't say hello? Or does the neighbor walk past and you give him a smile and a g'day? All of that is first impressions. And as I said, given that we don't have those 4 other senses in most cases to utilize with those first 2 to 5 seconds, the reality is that the sense of sight is really, in most cases, the only sense we have. So making sure things look sharp. Let me give you an example from myself. My wife and I, Kirsty, for a few years, were renting our home. We rented for a couple of years, and we then were looking on weekends for our first home to buy. And like most of you, you'd understand this. We went to lots of open inspections and those sorts of things. Couldn't quite find the home that we're after. It was going to be our first home, so it wasn't anything miraculous, but it wasn't quite what we were after. We couldn't find exactly what we're after. And then our landlord said, by the way, when you move out, we're going to sell this home anyway. So if you're interested in looking at this home to purchase, you're welcome to. And we were happy with the suburb and the environment and all those sorts of things. And we looked at the house in a different manner. The house that we'd lived in has our furniture in it, has our clothes in it. We looked at it in a different manner. We went right out to the footpath, the curb, to the road, and we walked from there through the house right to the back garden to the fence as if it was an open inspection. It had our clothes in it, it had our furniture in it, but we looked at it in a different light as if it was an open inspection. And suddenly we saw things that we hadn't noticed before. We saw opportunity, we saw possibility, we saw some things that we weren't real happy with that we knew that we'd be able to fix pretty quickly. And because we walked through with a different viewpoint, we just didn't walk through and get on with our day like we normally do coming through the home. We looked at it differently and we found those possibilities and we bought that home. And now we have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old kids growing up in that home. And we love it. We love the environment. We love the home. It's our family home. So if we didn't look through in a different manner, we wouldn't have seen the opportunity. And I do this with a lot of my clients, and I encourage you to do it. Grab a tablet or a pen and a paper and walk through your business as if you were a potential customer or a current customer, and go from the car park or the public transport or the footpath or whatever your environment is, and walk through as if you were looking at it like an open inspection or looking at it like a customer would. And I want you to look at what are the things that make a great first impression that I can reinforce, and what are the things that maybe make a negative first impression? What are some things that I can fix quickly? Now, of course, you're not going to be silly about it and be overly negative. Oh, the air conditioner needed a $150,000 air conditioner. No, it's the simple things that you and the team can do quickly that improve the first impression straight away. It might be the cleanliness of the window. It might be the door handles. I had a sign on it and it feels a bit yucky as that person opens the door. It might be in your facility looking around at their cobwebs in the corners. Often, many fitness people look around at their health clubs, for instance, and the treadmills and all that sort of thing looks great until they get on the floor like their members do, doing push-ups and sit-ups, and you can see under the treadmill and it looks like it hasn't been cleaned for years. So I want you to do that. I want you guys to go through or get your staff to do it. Again, not to be overly negative, but just to look for what are the things we can fix straight away. Even I was driving with my daughter Brooke the other day and we came up to some traffic lights and we were stationary and we were behind a removal truck. And the removal truck had all their signage on it and some marketing words on it. And they had all the right words like professional and caring and local and all these sorts of things. But the truck was ridiculously dirty. It looked like it hadn't been cleaned for years. In fact, it had all the finger marks where the door at the back opens up, and they obviously use that all the time. And I said to my daughter, she's doing a bit of marketing and design and all those sorts of things. I said, hey, Brooke, if you're a potential customer, what does that truck tell you? And she could see all the signage, she could see all the words, but her response was that they may not be very professional. They might not look after your furniture that they're removing with much care. So all the words were right, but the car looked terrible. So same sort of question. When you're driving around, maybe you've got a logoed car. Do you keep it clean? Does it reflect your image? When you drive up, Chris and his team, when you drive up to a customer's house, what does the car look like? Does it look professional? What if they come to pay at the car using your FPOS machine? Do they look in the back of the car and there's cans and bottles and all that sort of stuff in there? Or is it your professional image? So that's the first point I want to do. And I want you to take some action on that. So if you're listening live or you're looking at the replay, write down, make a note, and set some time aside to do it. When am I going to walk through my facility, my business, my environment, and take a bit of a checklist? What does my customer see that I get sign blinded by because I walk through that environment every day? And what can we do to make those great first impressions? Because 2 to 5 seconds to make a first impression, usually it's visual. If you've got team members in your group and a customer walks through and they can see through the window or see through the door, what is your receptionist or administrator or first person that a customer sees doing? Are they looking bored? Are they looking lethargic? Have they got their feet on their desk? Are they on Facebook? And then the customer walks up and suddenly they're all professional again. Too late. First impression is made. So there's my tip number one, and an implementation tool, is to make sure that you take the time to do that. And what I suggest is you get a staff member to do it once per month. Again, not the silly stuff like new roofing or air conditioning, but just the things that we can improve day to day. Part number two, I'm going to take you through with tips and implementation today, is body language for rapport skills. We've done a lot of work on the verbal side of things, matching words and speed of speech and tonality and those sorts of things. Today, I want to take you through the body language with rapport skills. Because what I find is a lot of people say they know about body language. I say, oh, listen, who in a group has had some training on body language? And lots of people put their hand up. And I say, great, tell me about it. And they all say traditional body language, things like, if you got your arms crossed, it gives off a negative vibe. If you've got your legs crossed, it looks like you're not interested. And all of that has absolute substance to it. However, the first thing we want to do is to create a connection with you and the person you're talking to. The first thing you want to do is to create a connection with you and the potential customer. Remember, it's about rapport. It's the early stages of your communication. So they drop the barrier and they speak honestly to you. So for instance, if I was walking up to a customer and they had their arms crossed and I go, traditional body language says that I shouldn't be crossing my arms, so I present to them without crossing my arms, I can think, wow, I'm doing that well, I'm doing good traditional body language, but subconsciously, because people like themselves, the customer is subconsciously thinking, this person's not like me, I don't really feel the connection. And therefore they don't like and trust me as much. They're less likely to tell me the truth. They're less likely to buy from me. So what I want you to do for a short period of time is just to throw traditional body language out the window and just say, all I'm going to do is to mirror and match. All I'm going to do is to mirror and match, even if it's traditional poor body language. So if you walk up to a customer and their arms are crossed, guess what? As you start that conversation, you should be doing something similar. Now, not something exactly the same, not copying, not mimicking, but something similar. So if the arms crossed is too much in the suit, it might be just the hands crossed below the waist. So what I want you to be looking at, I want you to be looking at the feet as you walk up to someone and meet them. And you can practice this in a social environment, because you don't necessarily be practicing on your potential customers. So practice it in a social environment. I want you to walk up and I want you to use your peripheral vision. Obviously, you can't look at someone up and down to see where their feet are and their hips are and their hands are and their shoulders are. So use your peripheral vision, look them in the eye, shake their hand if that's what your welcome is, and notice how they're standing. And just as you start your conversation, I want you to match that. I want you to start with their feet. Are they front on facing you? Are they side on a little bit? Is one foot in front of the other? Are they leaning on one hip? Are their hips front on or on a bit of an angle? So we've got feet, we've got hips. I want you to look at their shoulders. Are their shoulders front on or on a bit of their angle? Is their face front on or a bit side on? And you know, if it's a conflict situation, we want to make sure that we have a bit of side on conversation, because it reduces that fight or flight mentality in that reptilian brain. But that's for another day. Hand gestures. How many hand gestures do they have their hands on their hip? Do they have their hands in front of them? I want you to be aware of that. And I want you to start to mirror and match, not mimic, not be exact, but just something similar. Now, remember, it's mirror and match, which means there's pretending there's a mirror between you and that person. So if that person is sitting with their, let's say you're sitting down together, if that person is sitting with their left leg crossed over the top of their right, and you're sitting on their right, so their left toe is pointing towards you. Some people think that mirror and matching is I also need to put my left knee over my right knee, and then both legs are facing away from each other. That's not the case. It's like a mirror in between. So if the customer has their left leg over their right and it's pointing toward their foot is pointing towards you, it's like there's a mirror there. So you do the same, but that means that your right leg goes over your left leg, so you're also pointing into the middle. If it's the reverse, that they've got a leg crossed and you're sitting on their right and it's their right leg over their left, so their right toe's pointing out that way, guess what? Like a mirror, your left leg goes over your right leg, your right toe points out. So I want you to be aware of that. No matter what your normal way of communicating is, if we just communicate in the way that is natural to us, we'll put people off, and some people will connect with us and some people won't. So what I want you to be aware of to build that rapport and as an effective communicator is to mirror and match body language. And you'll see this naturally with best friends. When they're out to coffee, they happen to sit in the same way. They're not aware of mirror and matching. They just happen to do it. So if you as an effective communicator to enhance your connections, enhance the rapport, drop the barriers, increase that connection, have more people tell you the truth so you can help them more, have more people feel like they want to buy from you, then make sure we're doing that mirror and matching. Now, the good thing is, once you have mirror and match for a little while, and it's subconscious from the customer that they feel, oh, I'm connecting really well with Michael, I'm happy to have a conversation with him, we feel similar, it's subconscious. Then once you feel that you've built a bit of rapport, you can then go and match traditional positive body language and mirror and matching. So after about 90 seconds to 2 minutes of your conversation with you mirror and matching the other person, even if it's traditional poor body language like arms crossed, so you walk up to your customer, they've got their arms crossed, you have a little conversation with them with your arms crossed or your hands crossed. And if you feel that there's a good connection there, then you can change sentences, change topics. And then as you do that, you just open your arms up and get into more positive traditional body language. And so tell me a bit more about what you've done previously. And as you do that, you go into a traditional positive body language with your arms apart and not crossed. And if you've built great rapport, the customer will follow you subconsciously. The customer will open their arms up subconsciously because they've connected with you. And that's the best of both worlds, isn't it? Where you're maintaining good, positive, traditional body language, but also your mirror and matching, which is perfect. So that's about after 90 seconds, 2 minutes. If you do that and they stay with your arms crossed, guess what? Changes. Next sentence, you'll go back to arms crossed or hands crossed as well. So again, tip number 2 is make sure that you're doing this, not just talking about it, but aware of it. Practice it when you go down to the shopping center. Practice it when you're buying your petrol and you mirror and match the petrol attendant. Because it's on Zoom, it's face-to-face, it's on the telephone verbally as well. Obviously, you can't see them, so I can't do physical body language, but we're matching their tonality, we're matching the speed of speech, we're matching the words that they use. Why is it important? Because with rapport, face-to-face, body language is 55% of your ability to connect with people and rapport. We know that words are 7%. Now, the 100% means that if you don't know the words, you don't know what you're talking about, well, that's going to affect rapport, of course. But then in a face-to-face, 38% is the quality of your voice, and body language is 55% of your rapport. Over the phone, that changes a little bit, as you can see. So it's far more important to connect physically with people. Now, when I say connect physically, I don't necessarily mean touching them, because again, that's mirror and matching. You might be a touchy-feely person. You might like to have that connection, but the customer shows signs of not wanting that and enjoying a distance. Well, of course, that means you're going to have to enjoy that distance as well. And of course, with COVID, we need to be careful with our distance there as well. And the last one is, how are you assessing this? We spoke about previously the 3 positions that we communicate in. Now, we know that first position is when we're teaching or we're training or we're presenting or we're talking about our products and services. And we just think about ourselves. Am I saying the right things? Am I doing the right things? Am I sticking to the time frame? Did I say that explanation the way I wanted to? And it's all focused on you. That's first positioning. That's the worst position to be in. Second position is where all you're doing is focused on the other person, the customer, for instance. Are they involved in the conversation? Are they giving me 11 plus yeses? Are they sharing emotional words? Are they involved in the conversation? Do they seem to think that I know what I'm talking about? It's all focused on them. Now that's better than first position. The third position is a combination of the two. So third position is like, I want you to think about, you're in a helicopter sitting over and observing the situation between you and a customer. And then you're going, how is 1 and 2? How is first position and second position going? Am I saying what I want to say? Am I sticking on track? Am I delivering the message the way I want? Is my potential customer involved? And are they sharing emotional words? Am I mirroring and matching? Do they feel comfortable? You're going back and forth as if you're watching a movie of yourself doing it, but it's happening in real life. And that allows you to reinforce, yep, okay, I'm doing that really well. Or, yeah, gee, you know, they have a lot of hand gestures and I'm not using hand gestures. I better increase how often I'm using hand gestures. Or, gee, I'm talking with a lot of tonality. I'm talking fast, but they're slow and monotone. I better make that change. On my feet, their feet are in this position, or they've just moved. Some stage in our conversation, I need to move to match it. So you've got to be in that third position, your own matching police. But I'd encourage you, when your staff know about this and your staff are taught on it, then you give each other feedback, not at the time necessarily. Although I do have some businesses that do have some signs, whether it's a little whistle or whatever the case might be, which is their awareness to the person doing the presentation to go, oh, something's out there, so they can be more aware of it. But certainly afterwards, it might be Michael goes to a staff member and goes, oh, I noticed you doing that presentation to that potential customer. I noticed that you mirror and match, your feet were the same and your shoulders were the same. Outstanding, well done. Or it might be, hey, listen, how did that presentation go? Oh, well, yeah, I think I said the right things, but she didn't really seem to be into it. Okay, well, let me give you some feedback. What you did well was, I think something you can improve is, I noticed that when they were standing, you were standing front on and they were standing side on, which means they might have been a little bit intimidated. Let's do some training on mirroring and matching. Let's role play. Let's practice, drill, rehearse. And then you can improve your staff's best practice. But they need to be taught it first. They need to be aware of the benefits first. So that's where I want you to be, in that third position. I want you to be in that third position, similar to the helicopter, overviewing the situation. Now that's the same when you're in a sales best practice or customer service, but it's the same when you're having staff meetings with your other staff. And here is the big takeaway I want to finish you with and leave you with. Is that over the years, like many of you, I've done lots and lots of interviews and recruited lots and lots of staff over 25 plus years of being in leadership roles. And because a lot of those recruitment were in sales leadership roles that I was recruiting for, then I often get people that come into an interview. And if I'm doing the interview, quite often people that are wanting the job know about communication, know about behavioral style, know about mirror and matching. And quite often a potential staff member in an interview will say, oh, by the way, here's one of my strengths. I'm really good at communication. I'm really good at behavioral styles and matching the other person. I'm really good at body language and matching the other person. I know the benefits of it. I do it really well. I say, great, that's really valuable. And then I watch to see if they're talking the talk or walking the walk. Are they matching my behavioral style? Are they matching my body language? Not because I'm anyone special necessarily, but if I'm the person deciding on the job and doing the interview that they want, then influence suggests they should be mirror and matching my behavioral style. They should be mirror and matching my physical position, sitting down, whatever the case might be. So after a little while, I said, oh, hey, you mentioned about your strengths in communication with mirror and matching and those sorts of things. Tell me, what have you done in this interview to show that? And you can see that look in their eyes, and I don't try and set them up. I hope that they can tell me things that they've done really well in the interview, but they realize very quickly, oh my goodness, I'm talking the talk, but not walking the walk. And that's something I don't want you to do. That's why I've only focused on 3 things today for your tips and recap to implement, because to increase your communication, to have better connections with people, to have a greater influence, then you need to implement them. So now that is your task from here, is to get out there and do that review of your environment, whether you go to people's houses for customers or they come to your environment. Walk through as if you're a first-time customer. What do people see, hear, smell, taste, touch? But particularly, we know it's what they see in the first 2 to 5 seconds of their exposure to your environment. What can you do to improve that first impression? Secondly, body language, making sure you mirror and matching, being aware of that. And how do you do that? You sit in that third position for most of the time. You're looking at yourself. Are you performing the way you want? Are you saying the right things? Are you mirroring and matching? Is the customer involved? Are they sharing emotions? Do they feel comfortable? Are they telling you the truth? So there's 3 things for you today to go and action. For our Sales Authority Club members, I, of course, also want to remind you of our next quarterly event, the 7th of May, which is on mastering the 4 W's and the importance strategy to create a compelling reason for people to buy effortlessly. So for our members, make sure you jump on there and register for that nice and quickly. For our guests, then you're welcome to invite guests to that as well for our members. So make sure 7th of May is in the diary for an amazing day from there. Other than that, I'll leave it over to you. If I can help any further, great, but please make sure, as a reminder, 2 to 5 seconds first impression. What can you do to enhance that first impression? Making sure that you're mirroring matching body language and sitting in that third position in the helicopter, reflecting over that communication between you and a customer or an employee or a partner or a work colleague, to make sure you're getting the best of both worlds. You have a great day. We'll chat again later. Enjoy.